morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always, told out of voice to radio. So today we got a new Pokemon tool card to be talking about, ladies and gentlemen, and this one could be very, very fun indeed. It is going to be featured in, well, I would say Future Flash and Ancient Raw over in Japan, but that's not actually true. It's only actually going to be featured in Ancient Raw. Remember, in Japan, they are proper job double sets, and cards in one set are not in the other set, though they are released at the same time and intended to be a pair. There we go. And it's going to be in Paradox Rift for us, not confirmed. I suppose they could move it out of the set if they really wanted to, but I don't see why they would. That wouldn't make a huge amount of sense. And I'm delighted to say I did this translation myself, though I did check with the lovely Anton Boulet, especially on the name. It's Defiance Vest, and it reads like this. If you have more prize cards remaining than your opponent, the Pokemon this card is attached to takes 40 less damage from attacks from your opponent's Pokemon. Nice! And this is very, very good, incidentally. Now, a couple quick ruling queries to just iron out here. No, it is not limited to a particular type of Pokemon. It works on anything, so long as you're behind on prizes. And yes, it does protect you from attacks whether you're active or on the bench. That's all good. The question is, how good is it, and is it going to see any play? And frankly, I kind of look at this, and then I look at Copperaja. It's always Copperaja, right? And I go, yes, that sounds amazing. It doesn't have to be Copperaja. Could be Blastoise, as an example, though I like Copperaja a lot more. The fact that it's seen almost no play kind of tells you what you need to know about Copperaja, but I still love me some Copperaja. What do Blastoise and Copperaja have in common? Well, you can see on the screen here, they take 30 less damage from attacks. That's the key here. Simple as that. They take 30 less damage from attacks, so when you add this on as well, they take 70 less damage from attacks, and at that point, it is getting very, very, very difficult to actually go ahead and KO them. That's lovely. Yes, you have to be behind on prizes, but Blastoise is a stage 2, so a lot of the time you're going to give up an early prize before you get rolling anyway. And Copperaja, it's only a stage 1, but it needs free energy, and look, the reality of the situation is you're probably giving up a prize before you get rolling with both of these decks. So you go behind on prizes and you're good. Honestly, the biggest issue is when you start evening it up. You start behind on prizes, this is great, reduces damage done by 40, job's a good one. But then, obviously, as you go through the game, you can't be losing the game forever, or you will just lose the game. And you'll be like, oh, I've lost. That's not good. What you need to do is actually, at some point, start winning the game. But when you start winning the game, that's when this kind of turns off and potentially opens the door for your opponent. You have been warned, ladies and gentlemen. You have been warned. But my point is, minus 40 is big. And we've seen this over and over again. Now, I know it's very much fallen out of favour at the moment. But in the early days of the Mew deck, for instance, we had Oricorio, which reduced damage by 20 and didn't stack. And that was, again, we're talking early lists, the format moved on here. But in the early days, this was just a staple in like every deck pretty much. The Mew decks, all Fusion Strike decks, they were all playing it. It was just a thing. And if minus 20 is good enough to make a difference in the metagame, you better believe minus 40 is. I mean, if we turn it around the other way, take a look at Choice Belt. Choice Belt does an extra 30 damage, and look at the amount of play that's seen over the years. Huge amount of play. Because actually 30 damage makes a big difference one way or the other. Minus 40 is potentially huge. And the thing here is it's minus 40 to every attack. Now, I use Copperaja as an example partly because I love Copperaja. I'm going to start testing it on TCG Live this week, and it's probably not going to go well, but I'm going to do it because I love it. But of course, Copperaja just got a new tool in 151, which is actually very, 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 very useful. Now, what's it actually called? What's the English name? Rigid Band. There we go. Extra tight belt was what we called it in Japanese. Rigid Band is the official translation. And that's just minus 30 on a stage 1. So with Copperaja, you've got this decision to be made. Do you want to go minus 30, guaranteed, or do you want the minus 40 while you're behind on prizes? And the reality is, a lot of the time you might well be playing a mix, or it depends. It depends on the numbers. Because Corporaja's sitting there with a fairly massive 300 HP for a stage 1 Pokemon. Now, if your opponent can hit 180, for instance, then all of a sudden Rigid Band isn't good enough. They hit 180, Rigid Band takes it down to 150. They hit 180, Rigid Band takes it down to 150. That's 300, you're KO'd. Whereas if instead you're using this new tool, then 180 goes down to 140. When that happens twice, you're sitting there at 280, you've got 20 HP remaining, and life is good. Depends on the matchup, depends how much damage is being done. Of course, if you're going for a basic Pokemon, then you're brilliant, kind of, because of course you've got yourself Bravery Charm, which gives you an extra 50 HP, which on the one hand is better, 50 is higher than 40, but obviously that's kind of a one-time deal, whereas if your opponent attacks you twice, then actually this new tool's giving you essentially 80 extra HP, rather than the 50 you get here. So, and it's only on basic Pokemon anyway, so for a lot of Pokemon it's going to be irrelevant. Bravery Charm is good. This is kind of cool. So that's essentially what this comes down to. And what we've got here is a nice suite of cards. You can go for your Rigid Belt, or Rigid Band. It's Rigid Band, isn't it? Yeah. You can go for your Rigid Band, or you can go for your Bravery Charm, or you can go for this. But Rigid Band, I'm sure, is going to see play. And Bravery Charm is seeing a bunch of play, so we know that these kind of things, that, you know, these tools that make your opponent harder to KO, we know that they're good. And we know that people like them. And this is a good thing, ladies and gentlemen. It means that tools like this stand a chance. And if we look back through the past couple of years at a Pokemon TCG, we can see that this is comparatively quite good. I mean, you know, compare it to Rock Chestplate in Scarlet and Violet. It only works on fighting Pokemon and it only reduces by 30. And Rock Chestplate has seen very little play because it only works on fighting Pokemon. And the minus 30 is decent, but because it's only fighting Pokemon, we just don't have a fighting deck around right now that really is going to make use of that. So it's a fun little idea, don't get me wrong, but it ends up not particularly working because nobody actually wants it. Sorry, Rock Chestplate. Or we can go back a little bit further and have a look at something like Pot Helmet, which I did see pop up in a bunch of decks. And it was only Brilliant Star, so it's totally still legal in the format nowadays, but it's got to be to a Pokemon that doesn't have a rule box. And then it takes 30 less damage from your opponent's Pokemon. Any Pokemon, but it's only to a non-rule box Pokemon, and that's a little bit awkward because a lot of them don't really have enough HP to really make it worth it anyway. So, yeah. Pot Helmet's fine, but you can see why it's not working maybe quite as well as it might have done. You know, the one that really stood no chance was Full Face Guard back in Evolving Skies. If the Pokemon this card is attached to has no abilities, it takes 20 less damage from attacks. Well, the minus 20 was just never enough. When we look at all the other tools we're seeing here, Full Face Guard just wasn't good enough. Although, to be fair, it does reduce the same as Oricorio, but then the fact that it's only to Pokemon that don't have abilities just made it all a little bit too awkward. Or we could talk about Galarian Chestplate here, which was 30 less, which was awesome, but only to Galarian Pokemon. And I don't know, maybe it would have had a chance if Galarian Pokemon had ever seen any real play. And I hate to break it to you, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very obsessive about this game. I follow this game very closely. And I hate to be the one to tell you, Galarian Pokemon, as in Pokemon with Galarian in their name, really haven't seen enough love. Yes, I know Galarian Moltres V is great, no argument there, but as a whole and for decks, nah, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry, it's just not proven to be good enough. I am going to very tentatively give this 4 Wassies. I really think this could be quite good. And maybe I'm just getting overly excited, and if I am, that's okay. But I think this has potential in a bunch of decks, and like we see from a bunch of the other cards I've just shown you, the fact that this works on anything is big. Compared to the cards we've seen in the past, the fact that this is minus 40 is big. Yes, the having to be behind on prizes is a big downside, no argument there, but there are things really going in its favour. That's what I think. I want to know what you think. So let me know in the comment section, would ya? Go nuts! Be nice! And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWasi. That's where we talk about Pokemon and a whole bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCGradio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all kinds of fun things. Oh, and get shout-outs on the channel, like the lovely Unknown One, who's been a supporter of ours for a while now and is a very lovely person. So shout out to them for the support and the loveliness. But by far the most important thing as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.